Hello everyone. Welcome to our Church Champions event. I'm Alex Huggins and I lead this Christian charity, Faith in Later Life, where we inspire and equip churches to reach older people with the gospel, to disciple them as lifelong followers of Jesus, and to mobilize them in God's disciple-making mission. Our event today focuses on how we as seniors, workers, and church leaders can support good well-being among older people. As you'll be aware, later life can bring new physical, social, and emotional challenges, and these can really affect how an older person manages their well-being. As church champions, you're already making a tremendous difference in reducing loneliness and creating opportunities for friendship and meaningful purpose. Thank you so much for everything that you already do. Today, we want to encourage you and equip you to magnify your impact in these areas and in others, no doubt, in support of good well-being among older people. I'm so pleased, therefore, to welcome founder of Renew Wellbeing, Ruth Rice, to help us explore this subject further. Ruth and I have known each other for quite a long time now. I think it's about 10 years or so. And it's been really exciting to see her work in helping churches create spaces of well-being develop over this time. Ruth will share with us for around 35, 40 minutes, and then we're going to have an opportunity to ask her some questions. Please do add any questions that you might have throughout the session into the group chat. And hopefully Ruth will be able to answer them. Any that we can't, we will come back to you on. So Ruth, welcome. Over to you. The floor is yours. Please share with us what you have learned about good well-being among older people.
Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you. There's a few faces I recognise there. So I'm based in Nottingham, and I set up this charity, Renew Wellbeing, 8 years ago. But the first Renew space opened a decade ago, 10 years ago, as a result of my own journey with mental and emotional health issues. So we set up this first space. I think I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that journey. And I also then want to bring that into land with what it means to be championing those who are in later life. Having just entered into later life myself, it's my 60th birthday year this year. And I'm really glad to be part of this conversation, because I actually think most of our hosts, most of our regulars in most of our spaces, we have about 300 spaces nationally now, most would consider, no, they probably wouldn't consider themselves to be in later life, but they are. So this is real. This is us. This is what we do. This is where the church is at a lot of the time. And I've been looking at some of your blogs and some of your stuff you've been doing. I love what you're up to in Faith in Later Life. I think the partnership between us as charities is strong and could be stronger. So let's get started. I am going to share some screens with you, but I thought you'd better see my face first. But I haven't got as nice a backdrop as Alex with her fancy stuff there. So I'll share some screens, and if there's too much of the screens, I might change that later on. But let's have a little look at this. So hold on a moment whilst I just do this bit. Right, okay. So my story is very ordinary, really. I just had a massive breakdown about 15 years ago. I found it really hard to look after my own mental and emotional health and be a Christian leader. I then found it really hard to be part of church when I wasn't feeling well and needed something that didn't exist. I've put this picture up because not only does it show there's a book with that story in, so I don't need to tell you it now. The book is called Slow Down, Show Up and Pray. It's commonly known as Shut Up and Pray, but well, you know, call it whatever you like. And there's also a picture from one of our Renew spaces on there with some cups and some cakes, which kind of what we're about. But I put the cup one up there because really that sort of represents what my life felt like a cup that was a bit empty. I'd over poured from it for a long time. It was burnout for me, my crash, but I think it made me understand what it feels like for a quarter of the population who are struggling with their mental health. And those are the ones who tell us. So I think there's a whole generational thing of people who are struggling with loneliness and isolation and low mood who won't say. And so I think we've got other issues going on here. Anyway, cup of my life. My definition of well-being is being like a cup held in God's hands. He is well-being. And I had to learn during that long and empty year when I wasn't well, how to look after myself a bit better. I had to relearn about prayer. I'm from a nonconformist background and I didn't really have any liturgy to hang on to. And when you're not well, those of you who've been there will know you can't put a sentence together. You can't hold anything in your head. I had nothing. I felt like God had left me. It was a very long and empty year. But learning to pray with rhythms of prayer, learning to use the Psalms in a new way, learning to know that I am held every time I hold my cup of tea in the morning, being held in God's hands. These are important things for me, and became these rhythms that I began to want to share with other people. I also found hobbies helpful, and I hadn't had any hobbies up till then because I was too busy doing stuff. So hobbies, rhythms of prayer, and then also there was this sense that I really wanted to be able to get a bit of help. It took me a long time to go and get help because I was embarrassed, to be honest. I felt I should be able to pull myself together. I'm a Christian, you know. So I thought it'd be great if people could get access to a bit of advice off the record in a non-clinical setting, had people they could do their hobbies with and maybe could share their rhythms and habits of prayer together. That was all I needed 10 years ago. Set up the first space where we were being present, showing up together in a cafe style space. It doesn't have to be a cafe, it could be a church building, it could be outdoors. Being present at least 2 hours a week, at least 2 hosts, being prayerful, having a prayer space right next to your cafe style space. So bring a hobby, share a hobby, any faith and none, no proselytizing. That was just me not wanting to be on my own at home, having a go at origami to try and make myself feel better, doing a bit of gardening, but not being able to talk about how I felt, having a church family that I didn't feel I could connect with because they all wanted me to be better and I needed time to just take my time. And I just found it very isolating. So being present, being prayerful, having these rhythms and habits of prayer where anyone could join in, even people who aren't people of faith, may I say, but especially people who aren't people of faith, where we share our rhythms and habits of prayer because people do want to pray and we somehow hide that all away in a church service people can't get at. And then partnership with mental health services in a way that, or any services, to be honest, where anyone is struggling, just saying, well, look, we've got this thing. Come, it'll always be gentle. It'll always be simple. It'll always be safe. This is one of our regulars said to me when I said, why do you like it? Because it's so simple. I feel like I should have called the book, Is That It? Because it's like you show up, you put the kettle on, you get a hobby out, you have, you know, there's a jigsaw, there's some colouring, there's whatever people want to do going on around the place. It's very gentle. Some people stay for 2 minutes, some people stay for 2 hours. And then different points in the session, you go, we're going to do a prayer now if you want to join us. And we pray a little bit of Psalm 103 at the beginning of the session. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Pause, invite people to say a word, a sentence, no more than that. And go through that little, you know, thanking God for the good stuff and then confessing sin. And then it's just a lovely, lovely pattern of prayer, to be honest. And I just love it. Been praying it every day for 14 years. Love it. Lord's Prayer in the middle of the session, just as a pause after each line to allow people to pray through that beautiful prayer Jesus taught us. And then ending each session with this rewinding the day examine, it's called, you know, go back over your day with God. In what have you seen his love and beauty? Thank him. What wasn't lovely and beautiful, put it down. Anyway, that was it. We just show up, do our hobbies. It's here on the high street here in West Bridgford, where I live. 10 years ago, this space started 4 days a week. If I tell you it's still going 4 days a week, and I haven't been part of it for the last 6 years, it's really sustainable, this stuff. So I says to this lady who was coming in, why do you like it? It's just so simple. And she said this, I love this place because now someone knows my name. It transpired she'd go all week and never hear her name spoken. Isn't that heartbreaking? And you're hearing it all the time, you know it. And this isn't even somebody who was in later life. It's somebody who could have got out and about, could have seen people but just had got stuck. And I just felt I needed to somehow have a space where people were known by name and not by label, where anyone was welcome for 2 minutes or 2 hours, where you didn't have to imbibe the whole church thing to be able to pray. And that was the kind of the thing we wanted to see happen. We called it Renew, well, we didn't call it Renew Wellbeing. First one was called Renew 37 because it was 37 Abbey Road, and we didn't know there was going to be more than one. We just thought we were doing a thing. Show up, kettle on, activities out, pray, work with mental health services. Dial it forward a few years and realise other churches want to do the same thing. And I left the day job as a bit of an act of faith and set up the charity to help people think through, what is wellbeing anyway? If we're going to see it renewed, we need to know what it is and what it isn't. And I don't think it's about being well, which is what's tricky. And so for me, the pressure when I wasn't well mentally and emotionally was the church I was part of that I love and went on to lead full time. So it's not a problem with the church. It's a problem with kind of what we think of as community, really. I just didn't fit anymore. When I couldn't join a rota, run a thing, run a club, and when people wanted to pray for me to be better, but really that wasn't happening, it made me feel like there wasn't a place for me. And I do believe there are many, many people who feel that way, not because of their mental and emotional health journey, but literally just because they got older. And we've gone, oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, you can't manage that anymore. We really value you. I've been part of churches where there's a lot of emphasis on young people coming to faith, which is great. And we're the old people, and they're going, we really value you. And there's absolutely no evidence of how that is actually happening. And so this idea that well-being, it doesn't look like being well, but it must look like something. My husband works in IT and IT support, and I go past his screen on a Wednesday and it always says, today is Wellbeing Wednesday. And I go, oh, that's great, love. What's that mean? He said, absolutely nothing. They put it on the screen every single Wednesday, just they tick a box, done it. We mustn't do that as churches. We mustn't go, right, got a faith in later life champion, must get yourselves a wellbeing club. Actually, this is all about well-being. It's all about shalom, which is what I actually think is the best translation. We translate it peace, but that Hebrew word shalom is a wholeness where there is room for the okay and the not okay, the joy and the sorrow. There's room for us to be well and not well within the wholeness that comes with shalom. And I really believe if we can grasp the language of well-being, it's already out there in society. People are looking for it. They're paying big money for it. And it's the shalom of God that people are looking for. So if we can join with that language, and this would be the language of mental health services, but I wonder whether you're finding this too in services with seniors. So the 5 ways to well-being, it's a big piece of research about 15 years ago where they asked what helps with your well-being, with your mental and emotional health. And people said these 5 things: connecting, taking notice, keeping learning, being active, and giving. And I would say probably all of the things our services do are based around these 5 things. However, when I saw it, I thought, surely that's what churches have been doing for generations. And surely that's what we're hoping for our inner lives, not just our outer habits. We don't just want to connect people with each other and help people take more notice and keep learning a new skill and get active a bit more, well, and our chair exercises and give. We need this in our inner lives, connecting with the bigger story, knowing who we are and whose we are, taking notice in prayer, keeping learning from one another and the world around us and the word, getting active with whatever it is God's placed within us, and giving and receiving as part of well-being. So let me bring you to this. I'll come off all these screens in a minute so I can chat to you and see you. But this is from your website, Faith in Later Life Champions, and I love it. We love the Psalms at Renew Wellbeing. If I just tell you, by the way, I did have a degree of recovery. I'm not still in bed watching reruns of Dallas, which is all I could do when I wasn't well. I am out of bed, but I do walk with an emotional limp, and I do need spaces of well-being, habits of well-being, and still pray these prayers every single day with anyone who will join in. I still have a rhythm and habit with my first cup of tea in the morning. Hold it and drink all of it until it is empty as an act of warfare. I dare you, without multitasking and doing something else. Pause and know that you are held, and then meditate on a little bit of something good and true. Because if you're good at worrying, you're also going to be good at meditating. There's loads more on that, but my top tip is the cup thing. I commend it to you. If you're interested, have a little look at what I wrote about it in the book. So this is from your website, and I love this particular verse. The righteous flourish like the palm tree and grow like a cedar in Lebanon. They are planted in the house of the Lord. They flourish in the courts of our God. They still bear fruit in old age. And so we'll go straight to the end and we'll go, oh, still bear fruit in old age. That's what we want. But actually go back to the beginning of this little section, and it's about the righteous. So some of us have already counted ourselves out, and it's all right, because you're not righteous because you did it right. The righteousness that we are given comes through what Jesus did for us on the cross. And at his resurrection, his righteousness is given to us as a gift in salvation. It's wonderful, isn't it? So this is talking about anybody who has come to know and love Jesus. This is talking about anybody who has got some faith in later life. And that could be anyone, couldn't it? And we don't get to know always what people mean by faith either. When I was in church-based ministry, I did 45 funerals. I was only in church-based ministry for 9 years, and that wasn't all my church, by the way. I'm not a terrible minister who kills people, but it was just people in the community. I'd been a teacher for many years. People haven't got anyone to do this last bit of the journey with them. And I have to say, maybe 40 of those people would have said they weren't Christians until it came to later life, really late life. And then as they began to, God is so kind, isn't he? God is so kind, and the gospel is such good news. It's never too late. So I'm passionate about us knowing what it is we believe, and that anyone could be classed as the righteous here. Flourishing like, and these are the two trees, the palm tree and the cedar that are talked about. So done my research, the palm tree, deep rooted, bendy, because it can bend then in the wind and in the storms, and fruits for a century. So this is a good tree, right? I mean, not only that makes us think of holidays, but this idea of being deeply rooted and bendable so you can fruit for 100 years, amazing. The cedar, really strong, a strong tree. This also grows big and strong, and the wood can be used for building because of its strength, and particularly was used in the building of temples. So they would get that cedar from Lebanon because they didn't have it, and it was building off important buildings. The foundations of it would be this wood that was again deeply rooted, and again very quite strong, flourishing in the courts of our God. So just hold that thought, and that's where the fruitfulness in old age comes. And by the way, by fruitfulness, please question what it is you think of as a fruitful life. I thought, and it made me ill, that a fruitful life was one where, everyone was coming to Jesus and we were busy in his, that we were being used by God, all that language that I'd been brought up with made me quite ill. So if the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, and if the best thing we do is to spend time in the presence of God to pray, then, as Ajit Fernando once said, he was heading up Youth with a Mission at the time, he said, if the best thing you can do is to pray when it's the only thing left to you to do, that's a promotion. Isn't that good? If the best thing you can do is to pray when it's all you can do, it's a promotion. So the fruitfulness in old age doesn't look like what fruitfulness we might think fruitfulness has been, we've been told it looks like in younger age. Let me just go through 3 things with you, and then we'll have a chat about them together. So firstly, these trees are deeply rooted. The thing that I had to learn the hard way, and I think does relate to well-being in seniors as well, is that the below ground life needed to be stronger than the above ground life, so that the off stage life needed as much attention as the on stage life. Because there comes a time when all you've got is your off stage life, when the rest is falling over, blown over, disappeared, chopped down, and there's just the roots. And I love the fact that these deep roots of the inner life of prayer, the stuff that I had to learn the hard way. I have to say, when I first became unwell, and when the tree blew over, there was very little under the surface. So there were lots and lots of, I pray, yeah, I was reading my Bible, yeah, but I was praying for the stuff we were doing. I was reading my Bible to put a sermon together. I wasn't deepening the roots into the glorious, wonderful love of God until I'm lying in my bed watching reruns of Dallas. By the way, that's not a recommendation. It's just all I could manage. And I felt God say to me, Ruth, I could not love you anymore. I'll never love you any less. And I was reborn completely. That's the gospel, you know, we don't earn it. So for those people who find themselves at the stage of life where they can't do the stuff they did, the above ground life is struggling. If the below ground life is something that we honor and talk about and grow together in, then that will be able to be strengthened. What's it in 2 Corinthians 4, isn't it? That we are outwardly wasting away, inwardly being renewed. Just a word on that, though, too, that the deep-rootedness, yes, it's about prayer and it's about the word and it's about growth in our understanding of the love of God, but it's also deeply rooted in knowing who we are. What's good about us? What are we about? Who are we? And I think this idea that almost, I don't know if you've heard the expression about having a rule of life. So it's like the ancients, the old monastics would have this. It wasn't like a set of rules, but it was almost like a trellis for your life to grow up. The trouble with a trellis is it's good for a plant for a season. I was growing some ceanothus out here. I decided I might be a gardener during the pandemic. It didn't work well, but there's another story. But one of the plants I thought I was doing really well with started to die above the top of the trellis, and I couldn't understand why. And the reason was the trellis was too small for the plant. The plant had grown and the trellis had stayed the same. So these habits that we put in our lives, the expectations of ourselves, the things that we call maybe spiritual disciplines, they must change as the seasons change, as the size of the plant grows, as the age of the plant deepens. We must keep looking again at what are the expectations on ourselves and on others. So for you who are working and championing the lives of seniors, encouraging people to think about why are you expecting that of yourself now? I had this absolute conversation with my dad, my lovely dear old dad, who, you know, was struggling with not being a twicer. For those who don't know what that is, that's somebody who goes to church twice on a Sunday. If you've never been brought up, brethren, you won't know this. You're a oncer or a twicer, and he's always been a twicer, and he just wasn't managing the evening. I go, this expectation of what we can manage, what we're good for, how we need to be used. We've got to challenge that stuff and be deeply rooted. Secondly, they are full of strengths. These trees, particularly the cedar, really strong, a strong tree. In our Renew Spaces, we are looking not just at what's wrong with you and how can we fix it, but what's right with you and what's good about you. How are you a masterpiece made in God's creation? How can we honour and dignify the life that you have lived? Now, surely, and we know this, the older you get, the longer you have lived, the more experience you have of life, the stronger, the more these circles are in the tree, the stronger the wood that you can build with. I love that in our Renew Spaces, we're not even saying, right, you're old now, so you need to go along here and do a little bit of this thing. No, we're saying, what are you good at? Could you teach us? We're mixing generations together because the church can do that. We're finding the simplest possible way to say, please don't just bring like a set of problems that we don't know what to do with, because none of us are fixed. Bring us a set of gifts and strengths and we can build together a temple in which God can live. So something about the dignity, giving the dignity to people, the strengths that they can bring. I was visiting my oldest friend. She's 98. We've been praying together for a long time. And as I went to visit her, she's just in a care home now. They were doing some chair exercises. And I looked in and thought, I better leave her. And she looked at me like a woman needing saving. And when she came, I need to go and see my friend. And I said, oh, sorry, Joyce, you were doing she said, oh, she's a bit much. And we've got to just do them. And it was this idea that actually we can do to people just because of their age or stage in life, stuff we think they need, actually the dignity of saying, what would be helpful to you? What would you need? Now, please don't stop doing your chair exercises with folk if that's what you do. But this idea that people can choose, there's dignity, there's choice, there's strength within each of us. And just lastly, that we're transplanted together. So that I've put transplanted because we're a planting of the Lord together. But if you look in the Hebrew at the word planted, when you look at it in lots of places, we've been looking at Isaiah 41, you know, where the trees are in the desert and they're making the desert into a fruitful place, into a place full of living water. That's one of the images we've got for our Renew spaces as they pop up, that they're changing the soil. There's transplanting that the Hebrew word says is anyone can be planted into that, but we do need each other. It can be very isolating just to help someone find a hobby and do a prayer and then leave them on their own to do it. Meanwhile, in our churches, all the things we celebrate from the front are busy and rotas and full on and going forward. Let's talk about the deep stuff. Let's be transplanted together into the love of God, so that what we honor is the offstage life, not just the onstage life. These places and spaces, I have to say, I love Renew Wellbeing. I wouldn't be running it if I didn't. And I do think, alongside all the other amazing stuff you're doing, why would any church not want a place where they're praying together, where they've got space for any generation, any age to come together at least once a week to do some stuff, and where we can partner with our beleaguered services? To me, it's a no-brainer, but there are lots of different ways to do it. I understand that. But this one, free and available to anyone. I'd say being present, having your outer strengths to build with, being prayerful, having your inner habits deepened, and being in partnership, finding these places of connection to flourish is a really important thing. And you'd be welcome to join in with any of that was helpful to you. We stick all our training online. You can help yourself to it. You can join in webinars. There's loads of different ways to do it, but 300 spaces sounds amazing, except there's 50,200 churches in the UK, many of whom haven't thought through what to do for people who don't fit the mold. So whether it's because of your mental and emotional health journey, whether it's because you're on your own, whether it is because you have hit a stage in life where you can't do the stuff you did, we've people in our Renew spaces who want to be hosts there until the day they pop their clogs. And I wonder whether we'll work out ways to make that happen, because our shared rhythms of prayer can still be shared whether people can get there or not. Our sharing of hobbies, we've found different ways of saying, right, we'll drop you a little pack in. We've been doing this thing. During the pandemic, many Renew spaces found ways to carry on sharing good practice for wellbeing, even when they couldn't gather. So much deep learning going on, that just love to and commend to you this really simple way of thinking about well-being. I think it's personal, isn't it? We've got to think, how comfortable are we with mixing our prayer habits and our well-being habits, our kind of daily habits? How comfortable are we to share those? But for the church to become the community of well-being for anyone at any stage in life, I think for those in later life would be a relief. There's an awful lot of noise and fuss. We find many of our spaces have folk with dementia and their carers who just feel like, good, here's a place I can actually come, pray, be part of the thing. And for those, and many of you as champions will know this, for those who don't want to own the fact that they are struggling with anything, possibly sometimes because of a generational thing that means you should just be able to do it, it's great not to have to put a label on it, isn't it? Of this is a silo of now you need this because you're old, or now you need this because you've got dementia, or now you need this. Actually, if you just go, this is us being church. This is about well-being. That's why I love the term well-being. It feels very positive, doesn't it? It's a very uplifting thing that all of us need. The other marvelous thing is there's no them and us. You can't go, right, I'm going to go and help all the poor seniors. No, everybody's going as an equal. We're going there to learn stuff. I had a friend who was going along to one of these spaces because her son had taken his own life, and up until that point she just knew, everyone was like, there was pity, and there was it was just, yeah, there was just no way to talk. There was no place where she felt safe, to be honest. And then she experienced a Renew space where you could have some company, or you could have some quiet in the quiet space, and you were safe to do either. And it's her that made me understand the value of our quiet spaces, because the church can say, do you know what, you're never alone. And yes, we can meet your need and we can be the community together for a bit, but you are going to have to go home. And we can teach you, and we can together learn that we're never alone. That beautiful, beautiful God who made us and will be with us until the final breath, and then will gather us home. He's never leaving us. He's never forsaking us. One of the other things we've learnt, and this has been a delight and a joy to me, is that as we've practiced these sort of breathing and doing meditation together and doing prayerfulness together, there's some people that we've seen right through until their final breath, and that's really helped them to have been practicing for that last day, when the last breath you take will be the same breath as Jesus. Why would we not practice this stuff? Why would we not make this a key focus of our life together in churches, that we are the people of prayer, we're the people of shalom, we're the people of well-being? So I hope that's been helpful to you. I'm just going to read you. See, this is where I would have been better prepared if I'd been Alex. I'll just read you this little blessing from, this is from the A to Z of well-being, which was another book written sort of to help people think about what is well-being, what does it look like, and we like to think about what are our values. I'd just like to read you this little blessing for vulnerable values for you and for your church. May he who truly loves you bless you to know that it's okay not to be okay. In fact, it's the only way to open hands and doors and plans to see the new within the old, that there's more blessing than our churchy little boxes can hold. And may the Lord keep you in tension of lament and praise, keep you not knowing how many days we have, keep you outside your careful church-based plan, keep you applauding in your streets for your fellow man. And may the Lord make his face shine on you, and may it shine right through you, and may the things that you thought were you get caught up in the blaze of his shining face. And may he give you peace, not happy moments for the few who made it to the meetings who already knew his peace, but deep shalom that joins the many, but seeks the one who cries alone. Peace, shalom, well-being spoken, blessing given. May his kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Ruth, for sharing your personal story with us, but also the journey of Renew Wellbeing. I've got the book. We will send a link to both the books tomorrow in case anybody didn't pick those up. And I've also had the delight of visiting a Renew Wellbeing space down in Whirl in Weston-super-Mare. And it was really refreshing just to see that combination of, yes, great coffee and puzzling and crafting, and then a lovely little quiet prayer area with twinkly lights. And it was interesting, the kinds of people who felt safe to come along and be there. Sometimes in our church environments, it can seem that only people who already belong to the church would come along, but these spaces felt like you would go there whether you knew anything about Jesus or not and feel welcome. And that's really important when we're trying to welcome people. So, yeah, lots of really good stuff. I feel, Ruth, that you've ministered to us as well as given us ideas about how to support other people. I think what you said about the similarities between perhaps your own well-being journey, that season where there was this identity crisis of, who are we when we can't join the rota? Who are we when we can't lead staff? Who are we when actually our healing isn't coming? And yet the church is praying for it. And I think that some of these are very interesting questions that we grapple with among older people, perhaps sometimes using slightly different language, but all of that crisis of identity remains. And how can we encourage people that their worth, their identity is in Christ first and foremost, and that we can help them to have a purpose, whatever that might look like for their particular stage of life. So thank you for sharing all of that with us. Friends, do put in any questions that you have in the chat. We're going to have a look at a couple in a minute, but I thought I would give you all a minute or two just to think of anything you wanted to ask Ruth, by really asking the question, how do we translate some of this into our seniors ministry? So I know that there'll be people on this call who've got wonderful seniors coffee mornings or a Bible study. Or perhaps health services coming up soon. What are good practices that we can translate into those spaces?
This is a question for me. I missed the middle bit, Alex, because you froze.
Oh, sorry, I froze.
So yeah, I think what we tend to do is go, right, this is for the church, so it's a Bible study, and this is for the community, so it's a coffee morning. And what I'd love to see happen is us go, here's what we are. This is what we are. We're people of faith. So yeah, do the coffee morning, but why not have the prayer thing there? Why not make it easier for people to access the stuff of faith, but also why not make it easier for Christians to be human? Just don't forget, you're not like you've got to have your well-being act together to be able to serve the community. No, we're just people. So finding ways in which we take what we think are our ministries and just making it a bit more normal, a bit more like life. I think what we've appreciated in Renew is we use the language of hosts and regulars, because you might want to swap between the two. And then that means that as people get older and they're serving within a thing, they go, actually, I'm still going to come to this. I mean, that probably happens anyway, but it's not a demotion. It's just a kind of, there's no them and us. So I think starting with different language, working out what your language is around people's value, the word volunteer is quite a strong one. And I don't know. I think there's things to think about, and the people that can help you think about them are the people that you think you're trying to serve. They're the people who know what it is makes them feel a bit. We have a habit of going, what could I have asked you that would have been better there? And somebody said to me, why do you Christians always need to ask questions? Why can't you just say you're pleased to see me? Which made me laugh, and also go, yeah, great theme of learning. Let's keep learning. Because every generation coming through, becoming seniors, has had a different set of sort of life experience and expectations put on them. And as we're becoming seniors, I think people are going to really struggle to own up to the fact that they're not doing okay and they didn't do anything about it when they were younger. So I think making no what's the word I'm looking for? Just no expectations really that people are this one thing or this other thing and trying to slot them in, but having this kind of set of values that everyone can share. I think many of the wonderful ministries that are going on are great, but they're person specific. They're based on someone's gifts or skills. If you just under offer, you can probably do it for longer and pass it on more. Try not to base ministries too much on people's gifting and skill, but on the ability to keep showing up, I think is what I'd say.
Thank you, Ruth. really, really good stuff. I think especially what you say about actually asking people, ask older people
Yeah.
what would be helpful. People always say to me, "Oh, what should we do in our church for older people?" And I say, ask them. Ask them in your context what would be helpful to them. I've got, 50 great ideas straight out the box, but we really need to ask our specific group of older people and individuals in some cases, what would be helpful to you. Brilliant. Thank you, Ruth. Let's have a look at some of these questions. So Joanna has said, thanks for your enthusiasm, Ruth. Has Renew Wellbeing had any contact/insights about social prescribing? I think you do. Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, social prescribing, for those who don't know, and I bet you do, it is, can you prescribe me a friend? I mean, that's tricky right there. And GPs have said to us, don't know how safe it is. So what people have liked is the smart mark on churches that will choose something like Faith in Later Life or Renew Wellbeing, because they'll know that people being prescribed that it's safe. Social prescribers absolutely love a place that will under offer and not do some of the stuff that churches have tried to do. So, counselling and prayer ministry and stuff that there's nothing wrong with. But if you will under offer, if you'll make it simpler, then social prescribers like the choice as well, the element of choice. So that's the thing we've found is working with social prescribers is saying people can just come and access the activities. They don't have to do the spiritual stuff. And if they want to, they'd have to move to do it. So I think making sure that people are not thinking they're coming to one thing and it ending up being another thing, that can help. And also just, it's a bit of a postcode lottery with social prescribing. I mean, you all know that, you're from all over the country. So just praying a lot and kissing a lot of frogs so you meet your handsome prince, we always think is a good idea. Inviting people to see what you're doing. They will be genuinely delighted, and the church as a partner is now a thing. I think 10 years ago when we started this, it was very hard for the church to work with services because there was a suspicion. I think the pandemic's changed that. I think hopefully the church has changed that by doing better with their safeguarding and being simpler with their practices. But yeah, great to work with social prescribers. I think they're fab.
Yeah.
And they're doing God stuff. So recognizing that, and that
Yeah.
we haven't got the monopoly on caring about well-being.
No. So just for anyone who's just, never even heard of that term social prescribing in view of their church activities before. So say somebody's got a luncheon club, a coffee morning, a well-being space in an afternoon or something. What do they do? Do they go knock on the door at the GP and tell the receptionist about it? Do they write a
This
letter? Do they ask for a meeting? How do you do it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I say it's a postcode lottery. So normally it'll be through your local council, and you find out who's responsible for social care for adults, and send them send them an email. Better to find a person of peace. So somebody who will link you in, somebody who already works in existing services, somebody who will champion you, the champions, and say, this is a brilliant thing the church are doing. So it's finding that person and then kind of building that relationship with them so that the word of what you're doing gets into the right places that you might not be able to get it to. And also, I think, importantly, that the partnership goes both ways, so that you can invite somebody to speak into your situation, advice on how to make sure it stays simple, safe and sustainable. So I think making sure we don't go, right, you're doing a rubbish job, so let's help you, we're the church, here we come. So actually, no, we're just human beings and we're having a go, and we don't want to do anything that will hurt anybody or damage anyone. So can you help us to think this one through?
Yeah.
If you GPs might have social prescribers attached, so that's worth a try. But if you just type in something like co-production into your thing, co-production is another one of those words where people are producing a service together rather than doing a thing onto. But yeah,
That sounds like we're going to make a blockbuster movie together or
shall
something.
we? Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. So we've got an observation, I think, rather than a question, but let's share it for everyone. From Jill, choice is so important. We often think we know what people need, but don't always ask them. It's made me think about my mum with Alzheimer's. I used to be upset she wouldn't join in with everything that was offered at her care home because I thought she needed stimulating so she wouldn't deteriorate. But I've realized she needs the choice to do what she wants to do and for me to go with the flow, be present and enjoy the moments with her, whatever we're doing. Thank you, Ruth. So,
And I think on that, thanks, Jill, is to say, and that takes time, doesn't it? It's easier for us in a busy world and a busy church to organise a programme and slot people into it. I suppose what we found with Renew is what we're doing is setting aside time to be present to people and see what emerges. And it takes time. And often people are struggling with that as a, have we done it yet? Did we do the thing? And we'd rather be on a rota to do a thing and tick it than just show up and be present and listen with people. And I get that, but I think actually to go through that pain barrier of just going, I'm just going to sit and be, and we'll colour in, and this feels like a waste of time, but I'm being present till we hear what's actually in the room and what people would like to do.
Yeah, brilliant. We've got Kath from Whirl. Hi, Kath. Really helpful. She says, thanks, Ruth and Alex. Any particular thoughts on how we encourage the okay people to attend as well as the not so okay? Renew spaces can be so valuable to those who experience loneliness, but I find some are put off because they think they are not okay.
They are not okay.
They are
Yeah.
not okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
A wonderful double negative. I absolutely, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because some people genuinely don't need or want this stuff and they're actually quite happy with their own company. So just being aware of that too, going, this is not for everybody, and we need to just because we get it. But yes, I think I talk about like a rising tide of well-being and inviting people who have skills and gifts to just come and show us something that we might. And then often if you've invited somebody along once, they'll go, oh, I quite like that, if that's what you mean. But there's just this idea in people's heads when you talk about any sort of ministry or group or wellbeing group that it's like, everyone's sitting around and people doing unto them. Once you can experience the togetherness of a lovely space where there's as much learning both ways, isn't there? You gain so much from being with people who have life experience that I think it's that idea of maybe getting people over the threshold with an initial invite to come and show you something or have a go at something once. So you're not saying, we'd love to have you on our road, you must come to our group, because all of that feels like a pressure to people who aren't sure if that's what they would like.
Yeah.
But not
Thank you,
worrying too
Ruth.
much. If people are okay, great. That'd be
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. And I think sometimes actually we have to experience something when we are okay so that we remember it for when we're not okay, and we remember that that's a safe spot to go.
Yeah.
So yeah. Helen has said, sounds a great group. Thank you, Ruth. And I think she's asking some more of the practical
Yeah.
sort of skeleton questions.
Yeah.
What time do you meet to include all generations? Is it weekdays? What sort of numbers do you get? How many helpers do you recommend? What are the bare bones of how to do
Yeah,
this?
so and there's 300 different ways of doing it already, but it is most of them in the daytime. The target audience, if you like, are people whose weeks are long and empty with very little in them for a variety of reasons, one of which would be because of later life. So I think we say at least 2 hours a week, so that it's not a monthly thing. It's got to be weekly so that people can get it on their radar. But I'd go for more often than that if people could do that. And yeah, just at least 2 people, 4's better. But sometimes the helpers or the hosts are also the people who need to be there. So that can be really good. And we do host training. But yeah, and all generations it's a tricky one, all generations, isn't it? Because we found with children and with young people, it's wonderful when you can mix well all generations together when just working on family renew spaces. But it's the timing of those, because sometimes the time when kids might want to go is not a time when older folk might want to come. So there's no ideal, and we're always learning. We're a co-produced charity where we're going, tell us how does that work for you, because I haven't done that. So
trial and error. Thank you, Ruth. So we've got So Lucy has just expressed her thanks to say that it's been wonderful and refreshing. We've got one last question before I go on to share some notices from Paul. And he has asked, have you got any advice on how to gently speak to a person who needs to start slowing down but wants to hold on to old patterns of life that they are struggling to keep up with?
Yeah, I don't know, Paul, but if you work that one out, can you write to me, Dad? Because it's big. I think that's big. And I think actually, instead of making that about the one person, if that's coming in the church context, beginning to think about what are we communicating from the front? What do we cheer for? Why are we cheering for overwork all the time? And making sure that sometimes what we're talking about and we're honoring is the slowing down in our preaching, in our teaching, in the way in which we're sharing, in the testimonies we're hearing. Let's not just celebrate overwork. I suppose that's one way of thinking about it. But the one-on-one gentle, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine on that one, Paul.
Well, we're all still working it through. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much for everything that you brought to us today in your delivery of your talk, but also in the questions and answers. Well, that takes us to the end of our time together. Ruth, I wonder if you would come back and pray for us in a moment as we leave. But in the meantime, bless you all in the incredible ministry that God has called you to. I'm so thankful for every one of you, and it's such a blessing to get to know some of you and to cheer you on in the life-giving work that you do. Ruth, would you come back and pray for us? Thank you.
Father, thank you so much for all these champions. That you are a champion of heaven. We invite you to renew well-being in our lives and our diaries and in our homes and our lifestyles, our churches, our communities, in the lives of those who find themselves in later life. May shalom be renewed and restored in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.